So, I mean, let's start with, who are you?
Jacob Monroe.
There we go. Easy.
Who always feels like a deep question.
Yeah. I mean, we can go with name and then...
I'm having an existential crisis right now.
I think it's a good way to open. I think it's a good way to start.
It is good.
It's all going to get better from here.
Yeah.
But,
I'll get it.
So what do you do, Jacob? And for whom?
I am Chief Commercial Officer at Arenko Group, which is an optimization technology company in London.
Amazing.
And I've been there about a year and a half.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. But it doesn't sound like you're from London. It's really rude of me to say.
This accent.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm from originally from the northwest of the United States and most recently in California. So.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Cool. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess Chief Commercial Officer can be kind of vary a little bit. So what do you see your day-to-day being and what's your mandate at Orenco?
Yeah, so I'm responsible for sales in the UK and our expansion internationally. So when I joined about a year and a half ago, the company was just starting to expand in the UK, and now we've got a great product, we've got great customer traction, and so we're cruising here in the UK, and I'm responsible for making us go elsewhere.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, cool. And so, I mean, a lot of the people watching this will know Orenco. Orenco is kind of like almost like a household name in battery energy storage in Great Britain, which is obviously huge.
Love to hear that.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess known for a few key things, but I mean, for me, I guess when I think about Orenco, I think about the kind of first player in the balancing mechanism and the person who bought block switch and was the first person willing to take risks kind of in the balancing mechanism. But I'm sure it's way bigger than that. We'll go into more detail, I'm sure, when we talk about everything international and the kind of greater vision for Orenco. But yeah, what should we all know about Orenco? What are the key players? What's part of the Orenco game?
Yeah, great question. So the company started back in 2014. Originally, the CEO, who's was the founder and is still the CEO, he started the company originally as a developer of energy storage, and with the intent of being an owner-operator. And they built out the team at the time built out a nice pipeline of energy storage, and ultimately brought a 41 megawatt battery online in the UK. And along the way, the team was looking for someone to trade that asset, someone to figure out how to make money with it, or what we know as an optimizer. And the team looked around the industry and saw a lot of folks who could participate in frequency response services or could trade it like it was a big gas asset, sort of using the traditional methods. And the team said, we think we can do something better. And so they started building a technology platform in 2016 to optimize energy storage for their own use. In 2019, we went live in the balancing mechanism. So it was automated algorithmic trading in the balancing mechanism with automated...
Was it really? Was it like... Because that was kind of the point in the battery energy storage where everyone...
Absolutely.
So I think I could say this, that when Modo first started, that was kind of our very initial vision for Modo. So when we started Modo, we were going to be doing automated dispatch in the balancing mechanism.
Oh really? I didn't know this.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
oh wow.
Well, we don't kind of scream and shout about it, but yeah, at the time everyone was talking about, we've got this algorithm and it's all about having an algo these days. Human traders are the old. That's old news. But there was always, I guess, for me, and this isn't to kind of talk down anyone, a little bit of suspicion around, like, is that, like, how much of that is actually algo and how much of that is actually someone sat there pushing buttons as quickly as they possibly can?
Yeah, the great question. So, I mean, it was and is largely automated, largely algorithmic. Humans do... And I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but humans do put constraints on the optimization. So whether those are physical constraints based on what the battery is capable of doing, commercial constraints like a warranty, or a trader who sees a unique opportunity in the market or a unique risk in the market can say, actually, I think we should go after this bigger opportunity, or I think we should steer this way and avoid that major risk, right? So humans do control the optimization, make sure things work well, but you could just leave it running for as long as you'd like, and it will participate in the balancing mechanism.
Yeah.
And essentially it reoptimizes every 5 minutes and takes into account all the real-time data and says, what's next? So
Cool.
We'll come back maybe to what we do now, but back in January 2019, we went live in the balancing mechanism, and the team actually realized shortly thereafter that there was a lot more value in the technology that we were building to optimize batteries than there was in being, for us, for the team, in being a developer, owner, operator. Right? There are folks like previous guest Ben Guest who are experts at that, have really low cost of capital, et cetera, and we felt like we could help them.
Yeah.
And so around the time I joined in 2020, the decision was made to focus on being a software company. And we have an in-house trading desk that uses our optimization software today. And that software has grown in a lot of different ways in the past few years.
Yeah.
So what we do now is we automate all markets, so automated delivery of all markets. So it's ancillary services, wholesale markets, balancing mechanism, all that is automatically delivered and dispatched. And we have algorithmic trading in wholesale intraday, the balancing mechanism, and that is essentially done with the goal of taking the sort of day-to-day manual burden of trading and dispatching batteries off the trader. So we automate connections with the markets, for example. Okay. So what the battery is capable of is communicated in real time to National Grid. It's of course communicated in real time to the users of the platform. And in the event that something goes wrong with the battery, our software can detect it and notify anyone who needs to be aware of that.
Okay. Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
And then obviously the asset that was owned by Orenco was sold to Gresham House.
Right.
And so now there's kind of the development side, the asset holding side of the business is
no
done.
longer. It's no longer. So the company sold that asset, sold the rest of the development pipeline, just to focus on being a technology company. Yeah. And we sold that 41 megawatt hour asset to Gresham House. We still optimize it to this day. So when we sold it, we retained a contract to optimize it, and still do.
Yeah. Okay. Super exciting. And I mean, let's talk about. I guess it'd be interesting to talk about the juxtaposition and the difference between being an optimizer and being an optimization tool or an optimization software. Is that, I mean, I'd be interested to know, because you're still, making huge headway in GB. Most people probably will have seen the announcement about Gresham House and the contract. I mean, it'd be really cool to talk about how on earth you managed to sign such a huge contract. Because congratulations. I think that's really exciting. But how do you see, I guess, that alongside the kind of being a tool rather than being a service?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 1.5 gigawatts of capacity under contract to come online over the next several years on our or within our optimization service. Yeah. But the best way that we can provide good service, which is maximizing revenue, minimizing risk for our service customers, is to build great technology. Right? Yeah. And so we do that. We have, as I said, an in-house trading desk that uses that technology every day. Yeah. But we also license that technology that our traders use to other trading desks. So other participants in the market can use the same automation, algorithmic trading capability, asset management capability of that platform on a completely separate trading desk with different traders, different assets that we have no oversight or control over.
Okay, cool. And I mean, I guess on those two, what do you see a future where Orenco is just one, and where, I guess we hear a lot the profit sharing mechanisms around these assets, and the fact that people are building up huger portfolios. I guess the likes of Gresham House is, if they're in a profit sharing mechanism, the bigger their portfolio, the more cash they're leaving to someone else. I mean, what do you see the future being for Orenco?
I think there's two key reasons that it makes sense for us to provide the optimization service now. So one of those is it's kind of the market paradigm. right? Like if you have a couple batteries in the market, you look for an optimizer, right? It doesn't necessarily make financial sense for you to in-house, to hire your own traders, hire your own finance people, et cetera. So there's a big segment of the market today, as the market grows, that has really no, it wouldn't make sense for them to do anything but contract it out, right? Which is great. We think that's super important. The other reason that we continue to provide the optimization service is it provides us a great in-house customer, right?
Okay.
We have experienced traders on our trading desk who are providing excellent feedback about the product itself. So as I said, they are the users. As people say in tech, we're eating our own dog food, right? So they log in every day and optimize batteries using that software, and then they share their opinions about it, and their feedback about it to our engineering team.
Yeah.
And so those are the two real key reasons to continue providing the service. Yeah, it's going well. I think the other thing about the being a technology company is we do hope to, and your question about what does the future hold, we don't have any plans to stop trading assets ourselves, right? Okay. But we continue to think about ourselves as a software company because as those customers grow, and they do decide to bring some of these things in-house, we can be the end-to-end platform that provides forecasting, optimization, automated dispatch, reporting, settlement, all those things. We can be that software platform for them as they grow, right? And it's entirely. We think it would be great for asset owners to decide to bring it in-house, and we definitely think technology is a necessary component. An automation technology specifically is a necessary component of trading batteries, especially once you get to large portfolios.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess while we're on that, I mean, we hear a lot about the kind of GB space, but I think probably what people are starting to talk about now is spaces further afield. I guess one of the potential reasons that Arenko would have brought you in is that
this accent.
Yeah. It's just so charming. It's just
stop. Yeah, we're both redheads. We're gonna blush too much.
but yeah, I mean, I guess the kind of step from providing a service in Great Britain, particularly if you're looking at, I guess, a lot of the Orenco value proposition kind of revolves around market understanding and the kind of understanding of the local market. GB's system is obviously relatively far ahead of other places in the world that are deploying battery energy storage in terms of market structures.
Yeah.
But how, I guess, less about Arenko, but more, how do you see the battery energy storage space right now in terms of, commercialization and the complexities around the commercialization of battery energy storage? Do you see a big problem in stepping outside of GB?
So, I mean, I think the UK is a great place for energy storage, right? Just to be super clear, like the three things that are really necessary for us to think about entering a new market are depth of market. So what's the total energy capacity in a particular market? What's the total energy storage sort of projected in that market? Complexity. So how many services can a battery today participate in, and how quickly are participants required to bid into those services, to switch between those services? So that kind of complexity benefits automation technology, right? And then a business case today for batteries.
Yeah,
the UK has all those things, right? It's a big market. It's very complex, and there are there is absolutely a business case coming from multiple services here in the UK. So it's a great market from that perspective. And you may see on our CTO Roger Hollies likes to post on LinkedIn, and they get his posts get a lot of views. There are days where a single battery under our care is participating in every single market that a battery is allowed to participate in the UK in a 24-hour period. Right, I won't list them all out, but you know what they are, right?
Yeah.
And
super exciting.
It is super exciting, and it's fundamentally we want to enable users, traders to be able to do that, to benefit from that automation technology, so that as their portfolios of energy storage grow, that they can think strategically about what to do with a battery, right? And so when you think about where to go internationally and how to look beyond Great Britain, it's the same physics. right? So at the end of the day, I mean, you gotta balance the system. You gotta make sure the frequency is in line, right? Like every grid has every electricity market has really, if you boil it down, the same problems.
Yeah,
it's just different market mechanisms for dealing with those problems. And so we have really smart people who understand the sort of first principles view of what it takes to run an energy system, and so they're looking at those other markets and saying, okay, does it check all those 3 boxes, right? Depth, complexity, and a business case today. And if it does, then it probably makes sense for us to go there, and we can learn. Like that's, you guys are a startup, we're a startup. Like your job as a startup is to learn.
Yeah.
And I think it excites everyone that we would go into another market and learn the details of it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's also the option and likelihood of hiring people who already have that knowledge.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
folks who've been in those markets, etc.
Yeah. So I mean, without making any promises or spinning anything, where would you see Arenko going to next? I mean, are you going to be in Texas?
As our CEO says, you can't just walk into Texas with your cowboy boots on, So we want to take it as seriously as we need to, but we're looking at. Do you want to add something?
Well, I guess more about. It'd be interesting to know. I've got very little understanding myself of the differences between. Yeah, I mean, other than the commercial side, because it'd be interesting to talk about that next. But yeah, in terms of the market side, what do you see as being the key differences between somewhere like, Texas, to here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there are potentially a lot of differences, right? One thing that's great about the UK is that there are services that really take full advantage of what energy storage can do.
Yeah. Right.
The speed, the flexibility, the extremely granular data you can pull from a battery. The UK is just great at incentivizing those things using market mechanisms to exist. And so we look at markets and say, okay, do some of those services exist, right? So we're looking at the US right now. I think it definitely checks, or markets within the US definitely check the depth box.
Yeah.
Right. And then we look at, okay, well, is there complexity, right? And if you look at a market like Texas, for example, like you said, there's ancillary services that batteries participate in with, fairly short auction windows. There is a wholesale market to participate in, and they have a lot of the same problems we have, right? Like they have increasing renewables penetration that's going to drive those challenges. And that complexity even further, right?
Yeah.
And other markets in the U.S. Have their own challenges and their own mechanisms to deal with those, and so we think it's a really exciting market.
Yeah.
One thing that's pretty different about the U.S. is they have a nodal pricing structure. So it's for a few reasons, but helps deal with constraints. We don't have that here in the U.K. I think some people are talking about it. Yeah. But I think
we did a piece recently. Actually, everyone check it out.
How dare I not have seen that? My God, I should have read that. So that is a big difference, and that's something we'll really have to get our mind around, right? Yeah. And we're already starting to do that. We're doing market and product discovery in a couple of markets in the U.S. today, and our engineering team is excited to sink their teeth into that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I mean, I guess the next thing is one thing that we find really exciting is the idea of a completely different, not just market environment, but completely different commercial environment. I think expansion of a business case, particularly a tech company like both of ours, is that global expansion can seem like an easy thing to say, right? Like the software anyone.
Does it sound easy to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, in the sense that anyone can open software anywhere, right? Like we don't. It's not like we've got to ship a battery somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, I mean, why not go to Texas today and just start selling? But I mean, how, in terms of as CCO, like how are you going to be when Orenco steps outside of the UK? Are you going to be flying around? Like, how do you see implementation of a business on a global scale?
I mean,
like on sales, I guess.
Yeah, good. That's a good question. So I am flying around now a little bit. But ideally, we hire a team that knows the market, that's local to the market, that has relationships there, that can leverage those relationships fairly quickly, has market knowledge, and and sounds like from day one they know exactly what they're talking about in that market, right? And so those are some boxes we have to check on a team that we hire there. But first, we have to build a great product for that market, right? Or have a great vision for a product for the market. And so today we're having, as you do at the beginning of any startup or entering any market, we're having a ton of conversations. We're doing a ton of research about the market, and scoping out a product we think is going to be market leading. That we can have a ton of success in the States, as we've had in the UK, and hand that to a person who knows the market, who has those relationships to go out and sell it. Because we would be doing someone a disservice to hand them anything less.
No, for sure, definitely. No, that's really exciting. The minor point, but you mentioned UK. Are you in Ireland, Northern Ireland?
We're not.
No, okay, that's fine. It's
really the depth question.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess at Modo we're kind of starting to look at our global expansion, which is really exciting. And actually, we are starting to step into Ireland. Northern Ireland and the Republic, partly just as a test bed. We're gonna. But
how's the test going?
We're only just starting, but so far, I mean, I think the main thing is it's just really exciting. I think it's just it's really good fun.
Are you flying over there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very different flight to anywhere else, which is again the reason. Like, I think the thought of having to another market that we think is really exciting is Australia. The Australian market,
we agree.
Is going to be a really great place to be. But the idea of not being able to get somewhere within 12 hours and kind of step into a conversation face to face, I think is manageable, but it's a lot easier when you can just from Birmingham to Dublin within 40 minutes.
For sure.
And so it's really exciting. Australia, again, the thought of operating 12 hours out from a team who are out there, like I imagine you do a lot of,
but they work
7
while you
a.m.
sleep.
7
It's
p.m.
perfect.
Maybe I'll just have a control issue
do we need to work through that?
We can do the therapy off screen. Pretty good. But on commercials, can we talk about the Gresham deal? Obviously nothing, no spicy details, but that's I guess up until recently we've been seeing a lot of the big owners, I guess, to a certain extent, diversifying their partners. And having an asset here, an asset there. And it's interesting seeing Gresham make a deal like that. It's very impressive seeing Orenco being able to make a deal like that. But what do you see the benefit being? How do you see Gresham House justifying putting all of its eggs into the Arenko basket, or to anyone else's basket?
I mean, first of all, I'd say it's a huge compliment. The Gresham House is the top tier, right? You guys heard Ben Guest speak last time. There's a level of sophistication at Gresham House that is just incredibly impressive. And so for them to award us those contracts was a big deal and kind of a humbling moment for us. But I would say a couple things. One is, they've had a lot of optimizers. We've had a chance to try out, right? We've been working with them for a while now, since 2020. So they've had an opportunity to see how we work. We've had a lot of conversations about sort of the philosophy of how to optimize batteries and what technology is required to do that. And I think they hopefully, it seems, see the world in a similar way that we do, right? In terms of what kind of technology is required for that. The other thing I'll say is, the scale that they're talking about is huge. We're still one player in that, in a large group. So super humbling, super exciting, and I think it speaks to our shared view of the world.
I guess it's interesting because a lot of our,
not to speak for you, Ben.
A lot of people listening to this, I guess, will be in organizations who are looking at partnerships and looking at, sometimes it's a to a certain extent it's becoming a commoditized market. I think that's an exaggeration, but there's a lot of people coming into the space, and so being able to understand how people should be looking at forming those partnerships is really interesting, because I mean, we get asked all the time who's the best, and to be honest, I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. I don't think there is an answer as to who's the best. I'm sure.
Could not disagree
I'm
with
sure,
you more.
I'm sure
Our first conflict.
we can work through it. But, but I think it's just interesting to see, I guess, what a shared view on the world. What do you mean, I guess, by Gresham House and Orenco having a shared view, and why do you think that plays into a partnership like that working? Because maybe that will help some people listening to this work out how they can form those partnerships.
I mean, I would say, first of all, I don't speak for Gresham here, so I'll talk about, or Ben. So I'll talk about what we're doing and how we view the world, and we think there is a huge amount of complexity with batteries. There is incredibly granular and specific data coming out of these assets. They can move very fast if you have the right technology, and there is you basically have to, as a limited duration asset, you're constantly assessing the physical characteristics and constraints of the asset, right? What's the state of charge right now? What's it going to be later in the day or tomorrow? What is this battery capable of right here, right now, in these real-time, with these real-time conditions, right? And so we think we have built a product that serves users who are traders to, as I said, eliminate the manual burden, right? Take away the communication with grid operators, take away, concern about whether the asset is operating properly by putting in place alerting tools, right? Automate as much of the sort of manual burden of trading a battery as possible so that they can focus on the big money events, right? And that partnership, that marriage of humans overseeing this automation technology and algorithmic trading for those smaller, the smaller money events, right? We think is what the future looks like, right? And we want to continue to push the boundaries of what algorithmic trading is capable of, and also what automation is capable of, and what we can automate in the process. We're going to continue to push those boundaries, and so that's our view of the world. We think it's super exciting, and I think our customers like that, right? So they, at the end of the day, they'll get their check in the mail, but it is a question of remaining at the forefront of new markets, which we've done. Being able to deliver all the markets in rapid succession, like we've done, using that technology.
Okay, well, that's really cool. The other thing that it will be interesting to talk about, I guess historically, the commercialization of battery energy storage has been almost fixed, like month out, as in, even further historically, it was years out, right? Like you had an EFR contract, you sign it, and then there was long-term firm frequency response, and then there was month-long. Everyone tried a week. Forgot about that. and then we're talking about everything coming almost down to half hour. I guess, to what extent do you see the asset owner being able to maintain kind of a fluid and appropriate strategic decision with their partners who are kind of on, like, hands-on? I guess my point maybe comes down to reporting. Like, to what level do you think reporting is critical for battery energy storage revenues?
I mean, I think there's a couple questions in there. I think
No,
it's good. It's good. I love it. We think reporting is incredibly critical, and we have, we have a data portal where we can produce or automatically deliver all of the data associated with an asset, a market, trading decisions, etc. Customers are able to look at that data, and it's a highly transparent process for us, right? And so I think the first question about what is that relationship like? You develop trust by being transparent, right? And of course delivering results, right? The check in the mail is sufficiently large, and when you drill down into the reasons why and how we got there, hopefully it makes them happy.
No, makes sense.
That's how we think about it.
On checks in the mail and surprises in the mail. And again, this might be something that we end up cutting, but
all right.
Finally, exactly, getting to
the exciting stuff.
The dynamic containment. There was, I think, again, probably most people are aware that for a long time, National Grid wasn't necessarily communicating the penalties associated with inadequate performance. Of
non-delivery.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, everyone got told, oh, by the way, just in case you were wondering, here's how much you failed.
Yeah.
And the cost of that failure. I guess I don't want to ask whether that was a problem for you, but
ask.
Was it a problem for you?
No. We looked at, actually continue and I'll answer the question.
So I guess the question was about how it's possible to automate essentially what it seems to be a very manual relationship with a system operator. Like
Interesting.
Building a tech company is one thing, but it feels at the moment like there's so much of it that is manual.
Yeah.
In terms of that relationship, that I guess on the being a tool side, like how much of that can you take off people's plate?
Yeah.
Like, is it whether or not it's Orenco who's taking it off with a digital solution or whatever? Like, how much of it can be digitized?
Talk about the first point really quick. So we did an analysis after the fact. Can't speak for anyone else. We did an analysis after the fact, and our worst performing asset, we were about 99.6% delivered.
Embarrassing.
Compliant, right? I know. And we're very proud of that, right? We think it was a very, very high level of delivery, and we think that's a result of having a strong understanding of the asset, right? So as I said, we started as developer, owner, operator of batteries. We've developed our own assets. We've worked closely with integrators to understand what an asset is capable of and how to communicate with it. And as I've said a couple of times, like, we get a really granular amount of data from these assets, right? And so that's a technology challenge. That's a technology advantage, right? To be able to look at that data in detail and say, okay, how are we doing?
Yeah.
Why are we doing well or poorly?
Yeah.
In terms of delivering a service like dynamic containment.
Yeah.
Right. And we ultimately think that transparency, again, is what's going to build trust, right? Us coming out and saying, well, this is how we did in this service as a result of our technology, we think is sort of freeing for asset owners who then don't have the burden of wondering whether, who already know that two providers both delivering dynamic containment are not necessarily made equal.
Yeah.
Right. And so then they say, okay, well, let's look at your performance and how that compares. So we think transparency in that space is really important, really valuable for asset owners to make good decisions about who they choose as a technology partner or an optimizer. And we've invested in the technology to be able to deliver at a really high level.
Yeah. And I guess to what extent can technology take that risk off the table? Do you feel like you have a duty of care over making sure that those traders can't, or like the people who are using Orenco as a tool to enable their own trading teams, like how much of it is your responsibility to make sure that they don't breach their contracts?
It's our responsibility to deliver a tool, and we'll prove out in the marketplace whether it's the best tool that meets the standards of any trading desk, right? That when they're in the market, when they're delivering a service to their customers, whether that's our internal trading desk or one of our licensed platform customers, when they are delivering a service to their customers, that they have a high level of service delivery, right? And at the end of the day, the service, the requirement to deliver 20 hertz data or 20 data points a second to National Grid can only be a technology solution.
Because I know a lot of it is about data.
Yeah.
Like the 20 hertz thing is key, right? But I guess it felt like there was also potentially the ability to operate your asset even if you had 20 hertz data outside of the
bounds of the requirement.
The bounds of the requirements, in that essentially, sometimes things can respond too quickly, even if you're looking at 20 hertz data, and it can look like you defaulted or you didn't perform when you did.
Yeah.
And I guess, to what extent does like a big red alarm appear on the Orenco system when somebody tries to do something like that?
Yeah. That's a good question.
And whether that is even, should that be Orenco's responsibility? Or because a bit of the performance penalties under ancillary services, this is probably something I definitely shouldn't say, but to a certain extent feel like a commercial decision, like a risk. Like you could say, you know what, I'm willing to take the risk of performance penalties. You go as hard as you want.
Yeah.
And so I guess to what extent is
technology play a role?
Can technology mitigate those, and should it mitigate those? Like, is it appropriate?
Well, I mean, I guess I would break it down into three things. One is delivery of the service, and do you have technology that can deliver the service within the required bounds? Two is, are users made aware when there's a risk that it won't, or a risk, or the reality that it already is not operating within those bounds. And those are both very important things that only technology can provide. Right. Well, I suppose a user or a trader could sit there and make sure that they're within those bounds all day, but that doesn't sound like a ton of fun.
No.
And then the third thing is reporting, and as we talked about, right, operational metering at 20, providing that 20 hertz data to National Grid is another technical challenge all on its own, right? And I think that's why a lot of folks had trouble getting into the market, was the operational metering side of things. To the question about risk, that is what traders do all day. Right, make calculated risks. We think it's a good thing that National Grid is now going to penalize for non-delivery, right? Because our performance was good, but also because it incentivizes the right behavior and puts a price on taking a risk. So you can make a decision. Okay, do I want to take this risk or not? And so, I guess there's like an underlying point, which is, which maybe non-delivery is good in some situations, but that's ultimately up to
National Grid won't like. But yeah, no.
I should probably. Well, no, sorry.
no. I mean, I brought it up and I suggested it, but yeah, I mean, there's rules of the game and there's penalties, and I think to a certain extent, sometimes you've got to play the game. It feels like, which I guess, which is why hopefully National Grid will forgive us.
Getting back to the core of the question though about the technology, all those things can be delivered by technology, and ultimately it is in, I guess my point is, ultimately it is in the trader's hands to decide whether to go outside those bounds or not, right? Based on the numbers I said earlier about our performance, we think delivery is very important. A high level of integrity around delivery is very important. And we think having those penalties in place is a good thing. And we ultimately hope that more and more transparency comes to this space so that asset owners can look and say, who can deliver this service?
Yeah, because up until that point, I guess it was until those penalties came around, it was a really kind of almost muddy picture as to
absolutely
how's this happening. The tool, can you talk a little bit about how the business model for that tool? So, like for example, is it a monthly subscription, or is it is it another revenue share model, or how's it work?
No, so again, I think we provide the we provide this algorithmic trading automation technology and alerting and reporting capability at a fixed fee. And ultimately, we think it increases revenue and reduces the cost of operating a trading desk, especially when we start to get critical mass of batteries on trading desks. But we charge a fixed fee because ultimately, again, it's up to the trader. Well, let's back up. It's up to the developer and the asset owner to decide what warranty we're going to have on this battery, to decide how big is the cooling system on this battery, what are the capabilities of the asset. There's a lot of technical things about a battery that we can't control from day one, right? And then once you're actually operating that asset, it's a question of what kind of risk does a trader want to take to get to the last point, right? So we could create a tool that just is absolutely perfect. But if a trader decides that he or she wants to take a particular risk, or not take risks and be incredibly conservative, they can do that. Right. And so we think a fixed fee model is the way to go, and let those other trading desks take the upside. Right. We just want to be a software platform that enables them.
And how do you see? So the one thing at Modo that we find is fairly critical to us as a business, and as soon as it starts to falter, it's a very almost tangible within the office space is focus, right? So the very much kind of as soon as you start to spread, you need to be very sure that your resources cover that, and that your kind of business can communicate and narrate the focus of the business. How have you found juggling, I guess, creating a technology and selling that technology, and then also selling the use of that technology? Like, I guess, firstly, has it been a challenge? And if so, how have you managed it?
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess I would say, just to oversimplify, like we're a company that has two products, right? Like we have the software platform that we've built that enables traders that we license out. That's product number one. And then we have a trading desk to serve, as I said, really what the paradigm of the market is today, which is hiring an optimizer, right? Yeah. We believe as long as we continue to hire great people to use the platform internally, we'll provide a great service. Yeah. But ultimately, we're a software company that's developing a tool for traders, whether they are internal or whether they're external. Okay. Right? Whether they're a licensed customer or on our trading desk.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I mean, I guess the follow-up question is then how when you have more than one product, and it seems like there is one of those which is the flagship, let's call it. Is there a point? I know you mentioned earlier that you didn't see any immediate future where any products were removed from the Orenco suite of products, as it were. Yeah. As Orenco moves globally, is the play going to stay the same? Is it going to be a 2-product play, or are you going with just one tool and it's going to be the flagship, and where necessary you'll bring in your own internal product too? Yeah. Or will it be wherever you can you'll be bringing it in?
So we're planning on being licensing the software globally. Okay. So we're not planning on starting trading desks in any other markets. Yeah. Yeah, that's the view of things right now.
Okay. Mm. And is that because of any market dynamics? As in, is that because of the differences that we spoke about there being between ERCOT and GB, or is it just because is it just a focus issue? Or you can just say no comment.
No. I would never say no comment. I think the number one reason for that is really our ability to make the biggest impact, right? So one thing that's wonderful about working at Orenco is that everyone is aligned to the mission of enabling zero carbon assets, right? To maximize their value. Yeah. And it does take away from focus to start a trading desk. It also costs a lot of money to start a trading desk, right? It's not a small amount of money. It's also not a small administrative task or regulatory task. And so for us to be able to go into other markets and say, we're just going to be a software player. Yeah. We're going to make as much difference as we can. We're going to get on as many assets as we can by being on as many trading desks as we can. We think is the best way to move fast and make the biggest difference.
Makes a lot of sense. And I mean, how, in terms of, you mentioned something interesting there, which I wasn't really aware of.
Let me, actually, can I say one more thing on that?
You can, yeah.
It also is like we started by providing an optimization service, and so we know how to do that in the UK. We went through all those steps and bore all that cost right in the UK, but it also is a different business, right? It is a very different business, and ultimately like trying to be in two different businesses in multiple markets, is tough. It's not what investors like to hear about either, right? So I think that's key.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so the point I was going to touch on was that, I mean, I guess I associate Arenko very tightly with battery energy storage, and literally those 3 words, I guess. Like, how do you see other energy storage tech, including like vanadium flow, pumped hydro, and also, I guess, if looking at other geographies like in the US and in Australia, where we're kind of co-location is already a lot larger of a concept. I think it's probably fair to say that the business case for co-location in GB isn't in the same place as it is in Australia and the US. But how do you see the kind of translation of a tool specifically for battery energy storage to apply on something like a huge co-located solar storage in the US?
I think it's a good question. So,
well, and am I right? I mean, is it the case that, because in my understanding in the US, most large assets are co-located. Is that fair? Or?
Yeah, that's my understanding. So there are some tax incentives over there that make it more cost effective to build co-located assets. So a lot of what's in the pipeline over there is solar plus storage. In terms of the sort of first part of your question about
just being battery energy storage and
storage, we are not married to battery energy storage, first of all. So every battery has its own sort of unique operating characteristics, right? Every lithium-ion battery, right? Whatever you want to look at in that regard. And so if we look at a flow battery, for example, right? Maybe it's longer duration, maybe it's slightly different ramp rate. We've built a platform that is flexible enough to handle all that, right? Yeah. Those key differences between, for example, battery energy storage and whatever, pumped hydro. We could do that, right? In terms of co-located assets, I would separate this into two different categories. One is we just manage the battery at a co-located site, or we manage the whole package, right? And those are two very different value props. So I'll talk about the former first. We actually just went live on our first wind plus storage asset. We're just controlling the battery. But it's Vattenfall's PYC battery. So it's a former EFR battery. Thank you. And it's a really interesting challenge, right? Operating standalone energy storage is a specific challenge. Operating it in conjunction behind a shared grid connection has its own challenges, right? You have to be able to look at what is the forecast for a particular for the co-located renewables. You have to look at what's the real-time production of those renewables and as it compares to the forecast, and make decisions and take smart risks within the constraints of both of those things, right? So in order to operate an energy storage, what I'm saying is in order to operate an energy storage asset at a co-located site, you really have to be in deep with the renewables there. Yeah. Right. And to your point about it not being the same kind of value prop here, I mean, the most of the value of a co-located asset here is shared grid connection, right? You just reduce that burden and cost. And so oftentimes co-located assets are limited in their ability to export, right? So like both a wind farm or solar farm and a battery couldn't export full capacity at the same time. So that's what you're optimizing around, right?
Yeah.
So then if you think about, okay, let me optimize the renewables, we think there's some interesting things we can do with renewables. So again, it's another kind of asset, like it's a one-sided battery that only discharges, right? But it can be ramped down. Like you could feather the blades on the wind farm and turn it down, right? And ultimately you're responding to price signals to do that. Yeah. Which is what we do today with batteries. So our roadmap, absolutely, as I said, we just went live on our first co-located battery. Our roadmap absolutely includes optimizing the renewables as well. I think that's a couple years off. But hopefully you can invite me back when I'm doing that.
Yeah. No, it'd be good. By then, I mean, we'll be hosting this from the US or something. That would be wild.
Don't say that. Just stay true to your roots. Come on.
No, I'm actually never leaving Birmingham. I mean, so yeah. I mean, we're talking about the future. What do you see kind of on a? Do you have any like strong passions for the future, whether they're Orenco or not? I mean, what do you see as the future for battery energy storage, for the kind of future energy system in GB? Do you have any big, like, are you a hydrogen man? Do you
let's not again? Here's the conflict. You're just easing into it. There it is.
Yeah. No, it's just interesting to see. I mean, just on a personal level, do you have? If you don't,
man, I love batteries.
Yeah.
Like, what's that?
They're gonna take over the world.
I mean, they're just amazing, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy to me. Electricity is like the only thing in our modern day that is not stored, that is not inventoried, generally speaking, right? Obviously, you've got dams and pumped hydro and stuff, but historically, like, we just don't store it. And I mean, how many people grow up having any clue how electricity is delivered to their home?
Yeah.
right? Like I didn't until I was in the industry, right?
Yeah,
And it's horrible pun. It was a light bulb moment to be like, wow, nobody, like we don't store electricity at all, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't have to tell anybody who's listening to this podcast that that it's literally world changing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reason I got into energy storage is because like when I was in university, I was an economics major. I wrote a paper about basically comparing price curves of an exhaustible resource versus a renewable one. And the key assumption in that paper was that they are direct substitutes.
Yeah.
And they're not, right? Like electricity is not a direct substitute for fossil fuels because you can't store it, or it's very, very expensive to store.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I love renewables, like absolutely love renewables.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good. Yeah,
very much love renewable. But energy storage is the key to making them direct substitutes so that renewably produced electricity is truly a direct substitute for fossil fuel generated electricity.
Yeah.
Right? Or cars driving around on fossil fuels. Essentially, now they're direct substitutes. And that extends to EVs, that extends to anything where you're making sustainably produced electricity at direct substitute.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, and while you touch on it, I mean, how do you see EVs playing into, let's say, the Orenco solution? Like, what is it? Do you think it's even applicable? Whether or not it's definitely in the plan? Like, I
mean, it's it's just it's a big battery, right? Like, and you can in theory make one or many vehicles respond to a price signal and charge or discharge, right? And it could be one-sided. It could just be charge faster or charge slower. It could be discharge and charge. We'll see how it all plays out. Ultimately, I think like that is a more commercial question than it is a technology question.
I think it makes sense. One thing I thought about earlier, but didn't quite get my lips around was, onboarding of assets. So you mentioned that all of the technology is very different, and you're right, every battery has its nuances, even the same system built by the same people, if it's a year out, it's probably different. So how, I guess one thing that we think a lot about at Modo is onboarding and user experience, and how you can, basically give people the smoothest, quickest experience of your product as possible. But when you've got such a complex interface that is different for every project, how does the onboarding of the Orenco technology work? Like, how are you managing it?
So we put a little bit of hardware at site, a box we call Iris. Nice.
Iris.
It's got a name. And when our team installs that, a ton of information about the asset is automatically sent to our engineering team, right?
Okay.
And today there are some aspects of the onboarding that are manual. We do, right? Over time we will productize those things, right? So to use kind of an annoying word, like we will make it easy for a user of the platform to take all those things into account and to set up the platform with their specific assets based on that information, right? So it's one of those things that, like, they say in startups, like, do things that don't scale. Right.
Definitely.
And then you can over time build tools, automation, products that allow them to scale. And that's part of our, like, it's a great question because it's something we think about every day. Is the number of assets we're onboarding is rapidly increasing. And we don't want to, it's not a great use of engineering resources, right, to spend all that time if it can be made into a great product. So
I mean, you're so right. It's such a question that we get asked a lot as a software as a service business is, like, there's one bit of the business that doesn't feel like it scales in the same way, because everyone talks about, like, technology businesses, software businesses, the marginal cost of a new customer being, like, trending to zero. But then and then you employ 6 customer success people to manage.
Right.
And you're like,
it's a journey to zero, right?
And I mean, it's I think it's one thing that we're definitely believers in doing things first that don't scale. And I think, to be honest, there's some things that scale differently, right? Like,
100%,
and onboarding has always got to be one of those things that, to be honest, I think, you kind of have to forgive it being, and almost celebrate it being, there being a manual element, if it means that you can get the customer experience and the user experience that you need.
And learn, right? Like the only way we could possibly automate the onboarding experience is to do it manually a few times.
Yeah.
Right? We really have to
you don't do automation first.
Yeah.
It's one of Modo's principles, automate first.
I always tell the engineering team, you guys should automate first, but they never listen to me. No, I mean, I really think that's a big part of like the journey to automation. And it's also part of our sort of philosophy on the trading side as well, is we want to take away the biggest burdens to our customers first, to the traders first.
Yeah.
Things that don't add value, but take a lot of time. That is like tip top, right? Like that goes first.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of work your way down that curve of things that well, you know what that curve would look like.
Yeah.
You work your way down that curve.
I'm constantly working my way down that curve.
Yeah, exactly. That is the life of a technology company, right? That's the life of a software company.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing that's popped into my head: what is Orenco going to be on mobile? Or are we just also, is it like a web app? Or...
well, it is a web app. Yeah, I mean, it's a cloud-based platform. So our traders just log into their browser, two-factor authentication, of course.
Wow.
And they can optimize those batteries.
Yeah. But are you going to do mobile?
I think I actually don't know if this is true. So I'm just going to say I think you could just log in on your phone today.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's...
These guys are fully responsive.
Optimized for mobile, as they say.
That's true. You can go on your mobile on anything, can't you? So
Yeah.
That's right. The future's here.
So yeah, I don't know if that's the experience we will be focused on. It's just but it's a good question.
Yeah, it just popped into my head.
Is Modo on mobile?
Semi. As with all things, we try and be as lean as possible. So rather than making in one full foul sweep the whole platform mobile friendly, what we decided to do was to make a section of the platform mobile friendly and essentially hide everything else, which if you ask any developer, they'll be like, that is horrible practice.
Not the way to do it.
Never do that. But as part of the like, producing something that it doesn't necessarily scale, there are things that we have to work around because of the fact that we've done that, but it enables us to test. Does anyone even want Modo on their mobile?
Well, and that's the thing is how many people are trading very expensive batteries on their phone? Like, I don't think very many.
No, but maybe if they had a mobile version,
the future.
They would.
Wow, there's my vision for the future. Everyone trading batteries on their phone.
Yeah, just casually at the dinner table.
Actually, I will say, like, you have a residential battery at home. That's a mobile experience, right?
It is. You're right. Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like we're getting out of our lane here, but
anything software's in the lane. But you're right. You're right. Yeah. Cool. Unless there's anything else you want, there's nothing else that I've got to ask.
No, great. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. No,
thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Jacob, everyone, say hi. Cool. See you soon.